1. And hey everyone, welcome to day 2 of the BEAMathon. This is our second landing jobs and internships AMA, and I'm really excited to have some of our amazing speakers here today just to answer your guys' questions about things like interviews, resumes, and anything related to the internship and job recruitment process. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce our prize opportunity. So y'all know the drill. We're going to give away some Beam stickers and packages like these. Oh, I'm gonna throw it like I usually do. So basically, if you want to have a chance to win one of these prizes, what you can do is first of all follow Beam Community on Instagram, and then you can post an Instagram story taking a picture of this workshop and tagging us, or you can take a selfie of you at the workshop and say, hey, I'm at the landing jobs and internships panel, and tag us before this workshop ends. So without further ado, what I'm just going to do is pull up a slide of the speakers and then just go down the line and have them introduce themselves. So for the speakers, basically, if you guys can just introduce yourself, where you work at, and basically anything you want the attendees to know about you and what you're excited for in this workshop. So Ruben, feel free to go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself.
Totally. Hey everyone, my name's Ruben. I'm a sophomore at Stanford, and next summer I'm going to be interning at Google through their STEP program. And some other things I could talk to you guys about, just sort of networking in general, and also I've been doing some stuff in VC lately, so could also talk about that.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so now we can have Swetha introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Swetha. I'm a high school senior, and this past summer I was a former intern at NASA's SEAS program, which is an Earth and Space Science program that NASA hosts for incoming high school juniors and seniors. I can also give tips about networking and cold emailing, as well as like other ways to create your own opportunities.
Awesome, thanks so much. Sue and Corey, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. My first name is Suwern. It's nice to meet you all. Currently working full-time for Femtech Focus, which is a nonprofit empowering the femtech industry, so everything women's health and wellness. You can probably tell that my heart lies with social impact and gender equity, and so very happy to be here. Hopefully can answer any questions about non-conventional paths and working in a startup.
Awesome, thanks so much. And Abby, feel free to unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Abigail Peterson, but you guys can refer to me as Abby. I'm a current freshman at Western Washington University in their honors program, and I am pursuing a major in computer science, the minor in entrepreneurship. As the slide shows, I'm going to be an intern at Bank of America in their software engineering department. And I can tell you guys all about resume creation and interview preparation.
Awesome, thanks so much for sharing. And last but not least, Rebecca, feel free to unmute and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Rebecca. I'm a current junior at Boston University, and this summer I'll be interning at FTI Consulting in their corporate reputation practice and health and life sciences sector. I can also give any advice on networking, recruiting, interview prep, resume prep, anything like that.
Awesome, thanks so much to all the speakers for introducing themselves. I hope you guys are really excited. So now what I'm gonna do is unshare my screen and we're gonna go straight into an AMA. So if you guys have any questions related to finding internships or landing internships or jobs and stuff like that, or advice for the interview process or resumes or stuff like that, feel free to leave it in the chat. And then what I'll do is I'll just have the speakers, if they have an answer to a question, you guys can just raise your hand on the Zoom, and then I'll just open the floor to you guys. But we have some pre-prepared questions from our Beam Slack that we can ask. So one of the questions is, what advice do you guys have for nailing an interview or preparing for an interview? Because I know a lot of these competitive jobs that people apply to, the interview process is a very big factor in deciding whether or not they would actually secure the internship or job. So do any one of the speakers want to raise their hand on the Zoom and answer the question and give their take on any advice they have for the interview process or explain what your interview process was like? So feel free to raise your hand on the reaction thing on the Zoom if you have any advice related to nailing interviews and stuff like that. So anyone want to give their take and stuff yeah, Ruben, feel free to give your take on that.
Yeah, sure. I can start with this one. So I would say for interviews, the main thing they have to do is practice, especially with, I would say, with software engineering specifically. And also I'm getting into stuff like product management. I've done some investment banking and consulting interviews. And I feel like at the end of the day, although the interviews are very different, the one piece of advice that I would give is you have to practice. You have to do a bunch of, if you're doing consulting, you have to do a bunch of practice case studies. If you're doing software engineering, you have to do leak code those types of technical questions. I feel like for me, I sometimes get nervous or I sometimes don't perform my best on interviews. So I kind of want to make sure that beforehand I have practiced as much as I can and sort of have practiced all the types of questions I could see on the interview. So really, it just comes down to practicing and specifically for whatever your sector is. There's tons of books and tons of resources out there if you look them up. So I would say for software engineering specifically, that's the one I can probably speak to the best. Is the best resource is definitely cracking the coding interview, sort of for basics, and then going from there, practicing on LeetCode or HackerRank, just software engineering and technical interview questions. So I think for a technical portion for an interview, definitely practice. And I'd say the same because in most interviews, they're going to be asking you more behavioral questions as well. It really comes down to practice there. If you practice sort of your tell me about yourself, different situations that you've been in, those kinds of questions, it's going to flow a lot more naturally. You're not going to have to really memorize things. So you're going to remember a lot better when it comes to interview day if you practice beforehand.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on that. And Rebecca, feel free to um, give your advice as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's always good to have like a couple stories prepared as well. Like you're most likely going to be asked, tell me about a time when questions. And so I always like to have 2 to 3 experiences prepared in advance, just so that if they do ask, I kind of already have it in like the STAR method and I already have it prepared. So I would say have some stories prepared. Definitely have something prepared for tell me about yourself. Those questions that you are most likely always going to get, have something prepared beforehand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So we have our first question back in the beginning of the chat. Lexi asked, how do you stay communicative but not appear as overbearing or annoying? So I believe she's referring to when it comes to networking, when you're reaching out to new recruiters or people who work at a company that you're interested in possibly working at. How do you actually approach them and introduce yourself without appearing too annoying? Or yeah, how do you properly network with people? So yeah, Suwern, feel free to go and unmute and give your advice on that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. Like that's probably the worst answer, worst, not what you want to hear, but like let's say you are trying to reach out to someone on LinkedIn. They're like working for a company that you want to work at and in the role that you want to work at as well. I think the key to networking in cold outreach in general is like personalization of it and like making sure that you are not just, it's like it's quality over quantity for networking always, but also it's also a numbers game. So like don't take it personally if people don't respond. So like how to give yourself the best chance of getting them to respond to you is making it personalized, like looking at their profile, or they also went to the same high school as you, or like you have similar interests. Nowadays people put in their LinkedIn bios like things they do outside of work, and feel free to mention that in the thing too, like, oh, I also like coding, although I'm like in the creative field or whatever it is. And when it comes to like the overbearing part, I would say like make it as easy as possible for them to say yes to you, so that they don't have to spend more time on like, so if you have a Calendly, like Calendly is free to make if you make like, a 30-minute call or something, and you can be like, hey, like I'm a student at this and this and this, and I would say like use that student card as long as you can. Like as you're a student, like people want to help students. They know what it was like to be a student. They know what it's like to be searching for jobs and opportunities as well. And being like honest and forward, like why you want to reach out, because you genuinely want to work at that company. You want to know why they chose to work at a company, how it's like for them, and then be like, are you free to have like a 30-minute call? I've attached my Calendly here. If you're free, feel free to book any time that works for you. And I'd love to hear from you. So like make it easy for them to say yes. And maybe follow up at most, like most is 3 times. I would say 2 is like that's enough because people have busy lives, and so don't take it personally, but don't do past 3, I would say, because people have lives. So
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your advice on that. And Ruben, feel free to give your take on it as well.
Yeah, I would say that if there's a company that you're really interested in, it's better to start lower on the chain of command than start maybe higher up like management or a CEO. I have sort of a personal story for this. So there was a startup that I was really interested in. I really wanted to like just meet people there, do work there. And I tried connecting with the CEO on LinkedIn, and it's not like a huge startup either. And she's an alum from Stanford as well. I had left a message. She didn't connect back. Like she never messaged me back. But a few months later, it turned out that one of the presidents of a student org that I'm in knew somebody who was interning there at the time. So I was like, hey, can you give me an introduction to this person? And then I started by talking to that intern. Then I started by talking to somebody that was working full time on the software engineering team. And sort of throughout that entire process, I wasn't really asking for a job. I was just like, hey, can I talk to you about your work? And is there anybody else that you could point me to? And sort of usually they'll go a little bit higher and higher each time and give you more insight each time on that. So eventually I was able to talk to somebody pretty high up. I was able to get an internship with them or at least be in talks with them about that. So that was really cool. And I think it just showed that it's better to sort of sometimes to start a little bit lower, especially when it's something that's more established. And I'm sure this especially is true for like a huge company, right? Like a corporation or, a traditional big tech company. You're not going to be able to get any time with like the CEO of that company. So you definitely want to start with maybe an entry level software engineer, an entry level product manager, and then go up. Because it can actually turn out that a lot of those conversations that you have with, say, entry level people can turn into conversations with, I know this is really true in like investment banking. You can start by talking to an analyst and then they can refer you to an associate. And then eventually you're talking to like a managing director who could push your application through and push your resume through when the interview time comes. So it's all about starting, I think, small and sort of targeting those companies that you're really interested in and spending a lot of time talking to people from there.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice. Thanks so much. So the next question pretty much like goes for everyone. So Melinda asked, how did you guys each find out about your respective internships? And pretty much like what advice do you have for finding those internships as well? So it can be kind of like a 2-in-1. So yeah, Abby, feel free to answer that question.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, so how I got my internship at Bank of America was actually through a career fair. I applied for a full ride scholarship at the Grace Hopper Celebration Conference last year in 2020. I received the scholarship, and they have this they're very famous for their career fair. And unfortunately, it was all virtual because of COVID. But basically, what they did was for all the scholars was they gave them the opportunity to put their resume into a database. But before putting your resume into a database, they had a bunch of different workshops that you could go to perfect your resume. And I learned so much from those workshops. And I recommend that you go to workshops that are all about resume creation because guaranteed there will be someone there who has gone through the job application process and knows some tips and tricks to get your resume through to the recruiters. And so even though like even if you don't get into Grace Hopper, if you don't like do those big career fairs, there's tons of like workshops in different like organizations that you can get resume help in, and also awesome conferences like this that are more accessible. So after I put my resume in, Bank of America and some other companies reached out to me, and I had a behavioral and a technical interview through them, and that's when I got accepted from the internship. And so going back to my previous point, Grace Hopper is definitely something that you have to go through a lot of steps and hurdles to get into their career fair. And especially it was way harder since it was virtual. So I recommend instead of looking at opportunities like that, you look for way smaller opportunities from student-led organizations for who are volunteering their time to help with your resume creation or your interview skills. And yeah, those are the best ways to prepare so that you can get an internship.
Yeah, thank you so much for those amazing insights. So now we can have Swetha go next.
Okay, so I was an intern at NASA, so I guess like my story was a lot different from Abby's. I just looked up high school NASA internships, and my parents helped me with that. So then they told me they said, "Hey, look what we found. We found NASA Seas. You should totally check this out." And so I saw it, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is definitely really interesting." So what was really interesting about the NASA Seas app was it was kind of like a college application. Like looking back on it, it's like, yeah, you had to put your ECs, your the descriptions, your GPA. You have to answer a few like short answer questions. Now that I went through the college app process, I'm like, that was definitely the same thing. So that was really interesting. So one thing I would recommend is just to look online to see if there's any internships for high schoolers, because I mean, I did cold email for another one, but there are also programs like this that accept people. So for my cold email, like I cold emailed this environmental organization because like I was a fan of them and I wanted to work in their tech sector. So interestingly, I actually got on a video call with the CEO like months before because like I wanted to be part of the community building team at the time, and then he wanted to get on a call with me. So he already knew me, and so he's like, okay, we can take you in. I'll redirect you to our CTO. And since he already knew me before, they kind of took me in without any tech experience because I said that I was willing to learn. So I guess it was just a matter of coincidence that I knew people who worked there. So that's how I got that internship. So those are two differing stories.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with that. So, our next question comes from Victory, and he asks, are you guys familiar with Gen Z Mafia? And if so, how did you get involved with people in your area? So, basically, Gen Z Mafia is this platform. I believe it's for networking. So, I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but this can also tie into the question of, do you guys know of any other networking platforms besides LinkedIn that people can actually go and find new connections through? So yeah, Suwern, you can feel free to take the lead on that.
Yeah, I know of Gen Z Mafia. I think I was part of Discord for a bit, but where I'm kind of going with this is that there's actually so many, and I think like once you figure out a few that you follow them on Instagram, I know everyone's like Gen Z, I'm good at this too. Like you follow Instagram, you kind of stalk and see who are the people who hang around them, who are the speakers or the people that they highlight a lot, and like just continuously following and seeing what they're going at, sign up for the newsletter. So if you're interested in like VC and investing, join Gen Z VC. They host a lot of events. Free to join. It's also a Slack community. There's also Built by Girls. There's also Girls Who Invest. You can tell I'm very in like the gender focused like groups and like very inclusive groups. There's also a lot of diversity related like newsletters. So like Diversify Tech. There's also like Tribeha. And there's a bunch of others. So I would say like once you start following them on LinkedIn, then you can see like who are the people who speak with them, then who are they affiliated with. So a lot of people also put down their LinkedIn like where they volunteer. There's also a lot of like fellowship programs like access distributed for like underrepresented students from different colleges who are not necessarily the Ivy Leagues of the world. There's another one that I was trying to remember. Oh, so there's Ladder. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Ladder, but it's an up and coming Gen Z focused kind of like platform. So I definitely recommend that. It's very like I would say like tech focused. So there's like investing, there's like finance, there's also like, and it's pretty international as well. And everyone there is pretty much Gen Z. So I highly recommend. I think I'll drop the link in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for those amazing recommendations for networking platforms. And Rebecca, feel free to give your advice as well on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to put an emphasis on like those Slack communities. I'm also in Gen Z VCs, and I know there's a Gen Z consulting Slack community as well. So if you're into consulting, there's one for that as well. But there's a lot of different Slack communities out there, and you can find them through LinkedIn or just through friend groups or anything like that. I recently participated in Girls Who Consult, and I know that the program just ended, so they might be looking for the new cohort soon. So definitely look into that if you're into consulting. And then I also participated in Girls Who Invest. So there's a lot of different communities out there, LinkedIn groups, Slack communities, and all that. So definitely just take some research and yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for the awesome recommendations and tips. So Ruben, feel free to give your take on that too.
Yeah, definitely +1 on any sort of Slack community they can find, and also Ladder. That was a Stanford startup, and I've seen it sort of like from the early days, and just to see it grow has been really cool. especially as like an early user. So one platform that hasn't been mentioned yet that was actually super helpful for me, just like in the past 6 months, it's something called Lunch Club. It's basically this platform that will match you with people each week to do introductions, talk to them, learn about their work. It's really a mutual thing. So they're going to ask you about what you're doing and you ask them about what they're doing. And all the matches that I've done, I haven't done like a ton, but all the ones that I've done have been super high quality. I've been able to get referrals for Google, TikTok, really great companies just through talking to people on there, Apple as well. So yeah, if you're interested in tech and VC especially, that's a pretty good platform for just meeting other people in the space. But regardless of your interest, it'll try to match you with people who are interested in the same things as you. So it's definitely a platform I would plug too.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, I really love Lunch Club as well. So let's see. Another question is from Selena. So it's kind of similar to a past question, but a little bit more in depth. So how did you guys find your internship opportunities? Did you guys cold email? Did you use certain websites? Or did you actually reach out to recruiters? Or do you have any tips in general of how to actually reach out for new internships and stuff like that? So Rebecca, feel free to give your take on that.
Yeah, I kind of did a mix of everything. So I had been looking for internships during recruiting season back in September. So my school had helped a lot with that. A lot of recruiters came to the school. They had hosted office hours and things like that. So that's how I kind of found a lot of internships through Handshake, LinkedIn, and things like that. I found FTI Consulting just through some personal research. I was just looking into different consulting firms outside of like MBB and the Big Four, just to expand on my options. And so that's how I kind of found all of my internships. And then after I found all those different resources, it's a lot of different applications to kind of go off of. So I recommend kind of having a spreadsheet to kind of organize yourself by application deadline and everything like that. And kind of, if you know the recruiter, write down the recruiter's name, reach out to the recruiter and ask for any insights that you might need in order to proceed with the application process.
Yeah, thank you so much for that awesome advice. So going on to the next question is from Michelle. Do you guys know of any internships off the top of your head for the summer between high school and college? So it can actually be like pretty much any internship opportunities that people can apply for that are open right now. I know, there's opportunities for like high school students to intern at like NASA. Are those applications still open, or do you guys have any other recommendations for different types of summer programs or internship opportunities or like general databases or newsletters to find internships and stuff like that? So yeah, Sue, feel free to go.
Yeah, I also want to make sure that I'm not like hogging the stage, but for me, like I personally never got anything through just the normal like application process. So I didn't mention this earlier, but I graduated from the University of Houston, so we're not necessarily like a target school, well, or people would say, because I love my school for many other reasons. But we're known for entrepreneurship and very much more for like the engineering school, even though I studied business and finance. Um, what I will say though is that although earlier I mentioned like warm intro is like so much more powerful than cold outreach, don't sleep on cold outreach either. You don't need to necessarily only be applying. And I'm hopefully that's what I'm trying to say here. Like I never got anything through just cold applying. Like I like volunteered my way through, I like networked my way through, or like, just finding it in the most unconventional places. And it's not to say like, oh, you should, go into everything thinking it's going to become a job, but really just following, this is going to be so cheesy, like following like what you actually like and your heart. Because I didn't know I was going to be in my job right now when I was still in my last semester of college. And so I just followed like what I actually genuinely like doing. If for you is investment banking and consulting, great, you know exactly which lane to stay in. For me, I wasn't. And so like just honestly following anyone who you think is already interesting and trying to connect with them, seeing what events they speak at, attend their events, be active in the chat, get them familiar with your face. And that's how you can start kind of like getting into their circle of things. And there's a few communities, like there's like design buddies if you're in UI UX. They have a lot of events. There's also Tech Pod for people who want to work in tech, who are, I can drop these links later, who are not necessarily like in tech background, like maybe business background. And they also post a lot of like jobs, especially like internships. I don't know any specific databases, So that is something for y'all to figure out. But if they don't have the job listing on their webpage, a lot of startups don't because they don't have the time to create a whole careers page because they're busy building the startup. Reach out to them and be like, this is what I like about your product. I mean, depending on what role you're interested in, and being proactive. They see like you're proactive student. They see like the, I guess future, or for you to kind of help with their team and showing them how you can be useful beyond just, like, oh, I'm a student, I love to help, but like how, so demonstrating that is really important.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice. So Swetha, you can go ahead and give your advice on that as well.
Okay, regarding internships, I would definitely recommend incoming juniors and seniors to apply to NASA Seas. It's for high school juniors and seniors, and I really love the process. I interned there in 2020, so I didn't get to go to Austin, but yeah, it's in UT Austin. Like they host the program, and you get to conduct your own research and present it in front of NASA officials and workers, and that's just a really amazing experience. So once I find the link for it, I'll drop it in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sounds like an amazing experience. Go apply, guys. So yeah, Ruben, feel free to give your take on that as well.
Yeah, just really quick, I wanted to plug Google's Computer Science Summer Institute. If you're interested in software engineering or Google specifically, I did it the summer before my freshman year. Amazing experience, just getting to see the Google office, meeting really cool people. And after the program, a lot of people do end up getting the STEP internship after their freshman year. I didn't, and ended up getting it my second year, but still a really great opportunity. And I'm pretty sure that having done it really helped me with my STEP application when I applied again. So yeah, would definitely recommend that program. And just like the connections you make are really awesome. You get to meet actual software engineers there. And even product managers. Like one of my instructors actually ended up switching over to product management, and that's something I'm interested in now. So I'll be talking to him about that. So just really like any program you can do where you're making really great connections, I think is worth your time. But definitely that program was certainly really helpful for me.
Yeah, awesome. That's a really great opportunity. Yeah, go apply to all these amazing internships and stuff like that. Abby, feel free to give your take on it as well.
Yeah, I really love what all of the speakers are saying because I feel like it's really important advice, and it's not just like, oh, just network and you'll be fine. Like it's actually really, really good advice that I'll take to heart too. But I also want to build on the fact that you should definitely think about the why you're applying to a certain internship. Like it shouldn't just be just because, oh, I want to put it on my resume so I can like show my friends or something. Like it should definitely be something that aligns with your passions. And a way that I discovered that I really like mobile development is I was volunteering at a small nonprofit organization that teaches young people how to code, and I was a mentor there. And there was a young woman there that had her family there, and I went up to her and I was helping her kids, and she was asking, hey, like I heard that you can code, and that because I was presenting earlier, I was presenting like some of my projects that I've been doing, and I was working on like this app, and she was saying that she really needed an app for her small business, which helps senior citizens get accessible healthcare and who maybe not have access to it. And so I said, sure, yeah, I'd love to help. And it turned into kind of like an informal internship because she paid for me to do it. And I ended up building an app for her dental hygiene business. So yeah, it all comes down to just volunteering at things you enjoy, whether it's paid or not. And then the right connections will come to you. And that's how I discovered my passion for mobile development.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice you gave. Thank you so much for that. So before we go back to the chat, we actually have someone from the audience who wants to ask a question. So Victory, feel free to go ahead and unmute and ask.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and use this as an opportunity for warm outreach, since this is the kind of things that you guys are doing, like teaching us right now. I want to become a digital content creator and own a production company behind that. I know all of you guys are mostly in like the consulting, tech, like that kind of area thing, but do you happen to know anyone who is a content creator or has any sort of connections with production or anything like that?
I would say the best platform to network for content creation specifically would be, I didn't mention this earlier, but I just remembered it, Clubhouse. So if you're not on Clubhouse already, definitely check them out. I think there's a huge bunch of like new invites shouting coming out. So like you can probably ask someone. I know I hate the invite system, but it's because it's still in beta technically. But they have a lot of panels, I guess, like rooms for like different topics, and there's a lot of actually like content creators are going on Clubhouse talking about how they got started and all that. And there's this one club for Gen Z, and it's hosted by, her name is Everphilly, I believe, and she created Z-Link. I can send the link in the chat again, but it's basically like a Gen Z focused content like consulting firm that she created, and she's like the same age as me, like 21, and like, so there's a lot of young creators on there that I think you can network with and learn from them, and hopefully, I don't know, learn from them and see how that could be helpful to you.
Oh,
I'm
wait.
still waiting on an invite code, dang it.
Oh, I have an invite. Just DM me on Slack and I'll send you one after all these workshops and stuff. So yeah, I have 2 other invites, so if anyone wants to DM me for one, I got you. So yeah, we can go back to the chat for the questions. So let's see. Who do you guys contact when you are cold emailing? If you're interested in a company, do you contact a senior level person, executives, like an analyst or a managing director or something equivalent? Like, who do you exactly know, like who to contact, like as a recruiter and stuff like that? Yeah, Rebecca, feel free to give your take on that.
Yeah, I always like to start out with alumni. So I know that a lot of you guys are high school seniors, but if you have alumni that have gone to your high school, or maybe you had friends who are in older grades that are now off to college, definitely reach out to them first. They're always willing to help you out, especially if you went to the same school. And so I always like to reach out to alumni first for any networking opportunities or any openings at jobs, any openings at companies that are hiring. I always like to go to them first.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for your take on that. Let's see about the other questions and stuff like that. Let's see. Someone asked, can you tell us how to draft a resume from scratch so we get a chance for being selected for an internship? So, like, what tips do you guys have overall for creating your resume, and what to include, what not to include, and stuff like that? Because I know there's some people who say, oh, put the education section on the bottom or put it on the top or something like that. Is there, or like your skills, like your hard and soft skills? So what general tips do you guys have for including your resume, or like what was the structure of your resume in general that helped you get an internship at the place you're working at, or a job at the place that you're working at, and stuff like that? So do you guys have any tips related to resume building and stuff like that? Or if not, we can like move on to the next question and get back to it. Oh, perfect. Yes, Sue,
I'm trying to let other people speak. That's why I'm like not trying to raise my hand every single time. But for me, like I said, I never got something from just applying. So I don't think my resume is like that one that stands out. I never got a 4.0 in college, only per semester, but not cumulatively. So like, but I would say there is like a tip I can give, which is you should have a master resume, which is like every single experience for everything you do, like put in a Google Doc so you can like easily, edit it and all that. So like literally everything, like even if it's not related, like maybe you volunteered for an animal shelter, put that in. You never know when that volunteer experience or that connection would help you. So have a master resume for everything, awards, whatever, and then have your other resume for a specific job that you apply to. I would say to always include your education, because that is so important. But you don't like in question of like the grade and stuff. It's up to you whether you want to include that, unless like the employer asks for it. If they ask for it, then put it there. If they don't ask for it, then you don't have to put it there. Like it's so. I would say like have the master, have the personalized one. And for the personalized one, especially if you're still a student, you're not like an industry professional yet, you haven't worked like 5 years yet, keep it to 1 page maximum. I know that's like, you feel like you're selling yourself short, but like they're gonna be walking through so many different resumes. You don't want to bore them already. I think that's all the advice I can give because I personally don't think my resume stood out anyways.
No, that's a really awesome advice. Thank you so much for sharing. And Ruben, feel free to give your take on that too.
Yeah, I would also add definitely on the having a master resume, personalizing them totally. Like you definitely want to personalize your resumes to whatever you're applying to and the different industries that, especially when you're in your early stages of your college career. You know, I know a lot of you are high schoolers. You're still trying to figure out what you want to do. Like I was applying to sort of internships after my sophomore year. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do software engineering, if I wanted to do consulting, investment banking, like how do I know? I'm like 19. So it's like you definitely want to have different resumes for the different things that you're applying to. But something I'd add is just since a lot of you guys are in high school, definitely don't feel like you have to sell yourself short or that you don't have to put a lot of the stuff sort of as distinct bullet points. So right now in college, I've gained a few experiences. So I'm able to, put my previous internships or some projects that I've worked on sort of as the core of my resume and sort of things like activities and clubs that I'm doing in school, sort of like just in its own small little section. But in high school, the extracurriculars you do are pretty much like what you're doing for the most part. So I would say that even if it's not related, I know that some of the first versions of my resume had stuff like being on varsity swimming, being in orchestra, even though it had nothing to do with software engineering or the things that I was applying to. Obviously, they know that you're 16, 17 years old. You're not going to have like software engineering internships like completely finished. So, and they know that. So I would definitely say if you're in high school, um, don't feel bad about really highlighting those things that show that you're just involved in your school community, that you really like to participate in things. Because at that point, they're not really looking for hard skills because they know you're young, they know you can learn. They're really just looking for, is this person engaged, and would this person, be a hard worker for whatever they're applying to.
Yeah, that was really amazing advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's see, there's another question. Oh yeah, so as we know, we're all in the pandemic, so everything is moved to virtual, including this workshop right here. So how do you guys feel about the total scenario with internships in the COVID situation? Like, what is it like to work at a remote internship and stuff like that? Do you think it's been easy to adjust? Do you think it's hard? Or like, what's your overall experience been working at your job or internship? Yeah, feel free to share your take on that, Swetha.
Okay, so for my NASA internship, I definitely felt like I would have preferred to work in person because I have Zoom fatigue. I get it all the time. And for this internship, we would normally go and meet at UT Austin in person. And since we're doing this research together, it'd be really cool for us to bond in person. But even virtually, it wasn't that bad. But I just felt that in person would definitely be better. But I know that's a temporary setback. For my other internship that I did for the environmental organization, that was based in the UK, so I would have been virtual no matter what. But I just felt that there were a lot of problems regarding time zone, and that like whenever I needed help with something, they would be asleep, or whenever they wanted me to do something, I would be asleep, and vice versa. I guess like my virtual experiences haven't been the best, but I guess it's different for every person.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experiences on that. So yeah, Sue Warren, if you can unmute and feel free to share your advice as well.
Hopefully, yeah, because right now, so I didn't mention this earlier, but I started out as a volunteer at my company, and then it transitioned into a paid internship, and then it transitioned to a full-time job. So I hopefully can speak to this a little bit. I think going into it, setting clear expectations for yourself to your employer, whoever it is, like your mentor, whoever it is, like saying like, what is the mode of communication you expect? Because like, as when I started out, I was like, oh, I decided all my own times. Like I just worked maybe 20 hours a week or something. Now I work full time. So I make sure that I respond within a certain amount of time, and like where can people reach me, because what you don't want is to say yes to things, or like be expected to do things and then you don't actually do them, because those are the people who are going to be vouching for you in the future when you want to get another job, get another internship. The current employer you have is going to be the one saying like, oh, they're a horrible communicator, or like you shouldn't hire them because they don't know how to communicate and get tasks done. So setting those clear expectations and goals of communication for anything you do, even if you have a mentorship thing or fellowship thing, it will be helpful for you.
Thank you so much for sharing that amazing advice. So we're just going to end it off with one more question before we start our giveaway and pictures and stuff like that. So if you want to contact the speakers, they can drop their Instagram handles or emails if they want in the chat, so you can talk to them further if you have any questions. But the last question from Melinda is, if I'm interested in business in general, what kind of internships would you suggest I explore, or like any opportunities that you guys have in mind off the top of your head? If not, I can suggest one. I know that for like Bank of America, they have like Bank of America student leaders. I believe the deadline already passed for that, but you can definitely apply for it next year, I believe, if you are a junior right now, maybe next year. But Rebecca, yeah, feel free to give your take on that.
Yeah, so I'm not so sure about internships, but I know that a lot of companies have summits for first year students, second year students, that you can go and kind of explore the different programs and internships that these companies have. I know that a lot of banking firms like Capital One, they have different summits, diversity summits, finance summits, marketing summits, all of that. And you can feel free to apply to those. And they're only like 3 days they can last from 3 days to like 2 weeks. It depends on the program you apply for. And it's just a great opportunity to learn more about the company and more about the field that you may be interested in. And then if you get into these programs, you can fast track to interviews for a internship the next year. So I would highly recommend researching into those, because those are specifically designed for high school seniors, first year students, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing. We can have, Ruben, if you'd like to go and share your take on that too.
Yeah, totally. I would say that if you're interested in business, definitely think about sort of ways that you can get into that field, because I know that a lot of common paths to get into quote unquote business is something like consulting or banking. And then sort of after you maybe are an analyst for 2 years or something, you might go and work for another company in like business operations or as a business analyst there. So there's a lot of careers that you can do that are a really great path into what's thought of traditionally as business and sort of like going up a corporate ladder. But I would say that if you want to get into business or any field that could get you into business, really a good way to do that, especially early on in your college career, is definitely to be some sort of growth intern or just somebody to help out, chief of staff, something along those lines at any startup. Because at an early stage, it's really easy to just say, hey, we want students, we want people that, it may be unpaid, it may be paid, but if you're really looking for that experience and it can only last for a few months, I would definitely, take that unpaid internship with an early stage startup, just working with them, seeing what it's like. And that could lead to sort of, I think having something like that on your resume and just having experiences like that will really help you when you're applying to, say, business analyst positions at larger companies or consulting firms or whatever you want to apply to. Just because it's kind of hard to just break into it without having any sort of experience or anything related to that on your resume. So really the biggest piece of advice that I would probably give, and this is like more general piece of advice as well, is just don't really worry about the name of the company, especially your freshman or sophomore year. Just focus on getting any sort of experience that you can get, because by the time your junior year hits, you're going to be in a lot better position than if you just said, oh, I'm just chasing like these super prestigious named companies and weren't spending as much time actually building experiences. And by the time your junior year rolls around, you're sort of like on a more even playing field in terms of like what these companies are looking for. So I would definitely suggest that as well. Really just focus on gaining experiences, even if it's a super small local startup. it's something you can add to your resume. So definitely go for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's some very valuable advice to follow and stuff like that. So Sue Wern, you can feel free to go and give your advice as well.
Sorry if you can hear background noises, but there's like 2 or 3 points I want to like nail in quickly. Hopefully I don't want to talk so much. But firstly, like I think if you're figuring out what kind of company like you work in, all of them are a business. They have a business model. They're generating revenue. They're for profit, right? So like any company you work for, you're working in a business. But to figure out which type of company you want to work for, that's like the next question. And like Ruben said, like you don't have to aim for like the Googles or the Facebooks or the FANGs of the world. Like imagine being an early intern when you didn't know Google was going to be like this big. You know, like being part of that early experience also helps you. But I will also say that not everyone may have that privilege to work unpaid. So I would say like if you cannot take it, don't force yourself to do it. Like, you know, I know you should put your needs first, right? And then also don't sleep on student organizations or on-campus jobs or jobs where it's not necessarily with a company, but it's with a cause that you think will help you in your future. And what I mean by that is if you are into entrepreneurship and you someday you want to own your own business, but like you feel like, or you want to work at a startup, you can, but you can also be in a student organization, work your way to the top, become the president or vice president, and working in a team and like leading organization initiatives and networking and partnering for your organization teaches you so much more about entrepreneurship than if you were just being just doing research as an intern at a company. Like Skylar, literally leading Beam right now, like teaches her so much more about entrepreneurship than she would have just been, you know, doing like research at some other bigger company. So like taking that initiative if you want to do entrepreneurship. And I know someone asked about like entrepreneur and environmental like sustainability. I noticed a lot of Instagram accounts that talk about like sharing sustainable tips. Like check those out. There's also one called Good Fair. They do like thrifting stuff. So if you watch YouTube, you know a lot of YouTubers are like go thrifting at ThreadUp, Good Fair. Check out those. And I would also lastly say that don't fret if you don't get all the internships that you want. It's more about like what you learned out of it rather than just like having it on your resume, because there's so much more to you spending your time, because your time as a student is valuable, your time as a person is valuable, so don't feel like you have to give all of that away. And also still soak in all the energy you get from, you know, being a student and learning and everything. And don't feel that pressure, because I know I felt that when I was still a student. So I'm hoping that any of you, you're feeling like, oh, I didn't get this summer internship yet, what can you do instead that would make you learn as much as you would have if you did, you know, if you didn't take that internship, like attending events, attending conference, anything of that sort. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of your advice. Could we get a hype in the chat, some thank yous in there to our speakers before we head on to our pictures and just a quick giveaway winner announcement. Yes, love that. See, oh my God, amazing. All right, so y'all know the drill. Turn on those cameras. Let's take some pictures, get hype. Yes, oh my God. Oh my God, almost a full screen. Oh, I love that background. What's that background, the anime?
It's Detective Conan. It's about like solving murder crimes and stuff like that.
Ooh, Among Us. Who? Like, isn't that app dead? I don't know. Is Among Us dead? I'm not sure.
I think so.
No, I love Among Us still.
What happened to it? I don't know. No, Minecraft's gonna come back again. Oh, we got a full screen almost. Three more people in the corner. Oh, just for the aesthetic. All right, 2 more people. Turn on those cameras. So close. All right. You know what? We good. Okay, so now I guess we're just gonna do our basic poses, because I really don't know what else to do besides a heart and a peace sign. So let's just do a peace sign and take a picture. All right, so ready? Put those peace signs up. 3, 2, 1. Hey, that's so cool. Okay, so let's do a heart, I guess. I really don't know what else to do. I genuinely don't know what else. All right. So let's do a heart over here. Get ready in 3, 2, 1. Yes, okay, perfect. And we're just gonna do a quick little video thing where I'm gonna play some music, and then when the beat drops, you guys just wave so I can take a short clip and then tag everyone. So hold on, let me see what songs. I don't know if, okay, since we're talking about securing the bag, maybe we'll do this song by Bruno Mars about securing the bag himself. Okay, hold on. Wait. Okay, so when the beat drops, I'll just tell everyone to wave and just wave. 1 second. Okay, hold on. Okay, wait. Wave. Hey, landing internships and jobs. AMA. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the speakers for speaking here. So much fun. Okay. Alrighty. All right, so now we got the pictures done, some PR work done. We're just gonna quickly what am I talking about? My English is lost today. We're going to introduce our social media competition winners. So let me just share my screen here. And so can we get a drum roll, please, for our social media competition winners? And 3, 2, 1, and congratulations to these people for winning another pack of Beam stickers. I know there's a lot of duplicate winners, but you're just gonna get lots and lots of stickers. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the speakers for speaking, and I'll see you guys at our next workshop, which is building your network and connections with Sophie Barron from the Conversationalist. So thank you so much to the speakers for coming, and you're free to go, or you can stay for the next workshop. So, see ya.
Thank you, Skylar, for inviting me.
Of course, thank you so much for coming and speaking.
Yeah, thanks, Skylar.
Thank you.
Bye.